What's going on, guys? It's Spectre React, and today we're reviewing the first two episodes of Dave Filoni's brand new show, The Bad Batch. These episodes are titled Aftermath and Cut and Run, respectively, and personally, I was very pleased to see that Aftermath was a 70-minute premiere as opposed to the 20-minute episodes that we're used to.
Gotta love when they change the times, man. That was super exciting for me too. Before we even get started, I really want to just have you dive into the comics versus the show because I'm not the Star Wars guy, but you're definitely the Star Wars guy, and you had a lot to say during the time when we watched it. So I really want to hear what you have to say about all this.
Absolutely. So, in the comics, Kanan Jarrus experienced Order 66 on a planet named Collar, and this event took place at night. And what struck me as really emotional was the fact that he had a bond with the clone troopers that later massacred his master. Now, in this episode, the same story was adapted, and it was personally great to see Kanan back as a younger version of himself. Though I wasn't a fan of Freddie Prinze Jr.'s voice. I think they could have done a better job with that. But still, it was nice to see Kanan again. At the same time, the story in the comics, in my opinion, was better, is more emotional, and in this version, Kanan didn't have as much of a bond with the clone troopers that took place in Order 66.
Yeah, man, but you know you messed up when the comic makes you feel more emotion than the show, than the on-screen adaptation. And I guess there were some comics that I've read also that were a little bit better than the shows. Maybe the Phoenix Saga from Marvel was a little bit better than the on-screen adaptations, a lot better than the on-screen adaptations. But yeah, I was when you told me how that comic went down, I really felt the same way. Also, yeah, about the voice, man, could you not have picked a kid? Like, could they not have picked just someone who was like a younger voice? They gave him like a big man's voice.
Exactly, and Star Wars is usually pretty good with casting, so I don't know why they flubbed up on that one.
Man, no idea. But Filoni is Mr. Retcon right now. Not to say that Filoni's not extremely talented. By the way, we're fans of him, but I don't know about that one. After hearing about the comics, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there was a solid reason to overwrite that story, but I'm sure there was, and we just don't know about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's behind the scenes. I'd love to talk to Filoni and find out at some point. But I do have to give respect to Star Wars where it's due here because every time, every generation of kids, they kind of just come up with a show. Because when we were kind of kids, I guess we were kind of kids at this point, was when Clone Wars came out.
We were definitely kids.
I mean, yeah, it was the kind of kids. I guess we were the kind of kids at that point that like you couldn't tell your friends that you watched Clone Wars, but you could like,
Yeah, I remember having a Clone Wars lunchbox, and everyone made
oh
fun of me for
man,
that.
yeah.
But point is, Clone Wars inspired us throughout our adolescence, and I'm glad that there's a new show that's out there to really get the kids hooked on Star Wars and maybe get them interested in some of the more, stylistically deeper aspects of Star Wars, right?
And yeah, I gotta say that I'm really also I didn't used to be a fan of this, but I'm really a fan of not everything has to be Jedi this, lightsaber that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so much more to Star Wars that you've shown me because of your fandom to Star Wars. But it's like I'm so glad that they're pushing away from just that cookie cutter thing of, you know, the guy finds a lightsaber, he's sitting on a desert planet, he does they got to move away from that. I'm really glad they have because Star Wars has so much more to offer. At the same time, I do feel like they're kind of ripping off Mando a little bit here.
100%. I think the family dynamics, especially, this trope of taking in a child and initially being hesitant to accept this child as part of your family, but then later coming around. It's been in Star Wars for a very long time, and I think, yeah, it's kind of overstayed its welcome.
Yeah, I think they didn't have to repeat the story that heavily because I mean at least this kid can talk and is significantly younger yet older, but older like maturity wise I guess. But yeah, I just don't know why they had to rip off the exactly same story. Then again, we don't know if they're gonna rip it off completely.
Well, I read that Omega was inserted to kind of give depth to the Bad Batch and show them in roles that we aren't as accustomed to seeing them in. It's not every day that you see these hardened soldiers as parents.
True, very true. Or it is every day if you live anywhere near Cut, who we see in the second
Good point.
episode, which was, by the way, shout out to my transitioning right there. By the way, then like we see the planet. That was a very worthy inclusion of a second episode. I know we're jumping around from episode 1 to 2, but we kind of just mesh it into one review here, guys. But what did you think about Cut?
I thought Cut was a very interesting character, and I'm glad they brought him back from the Clone Wars. It was really good to see him in the new art style because previously the Clone Wars didn't look as realistic. But he Cut's a badass, and it was awesome to see him again.
Definitely, definitely. I'm also glad they kind of, and I know you have so much to say about this, but they're kind of fleshing out the politics and all these like all the Palpatine stuff that he has. Just talk about this more because you have a lot to say about this. I can already tell by your face right now.
For sure. So, in episode one, we got another glimpse at Palpatine's proclamation of a new order, which is that speech where he goes, the attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed. And then Wrecker says, you can say that again. And I just really love that, like, comedic take on such a serious speech in Revenge of the Sith. It was really, really poignant moment that fleshed out how people might not view events in the galaxy the same way, you know?
Yeah, and you gotta love Wrecker, man. I think we might disagree on this, but I really enjoy Wrecker as like a comedic element character, and he's just like it's just so fun to see one character just be like, "Alright, I'm just gonna punch this thing," and he's just very funny. I That's probably the highlight of the show to me is Wrecker.
I agree that he's very funny, but at the same time, I think he's veering a little bit too much towards that slapstick cliche kind of thing. And I would honestly be down if they went the kind of like Hank in Breaking Bad route, where he starts off as this very one-dimensional, macho, tough guy, funny guy, and then he ends up being this secretly cerebral and intelligent individual.
I'm honestly cool with him being like Joey from Friends, where he has the bear, he's a little like soft toy, and he's just strong. I'm cool with it. I don't really care about that, but he's as long as he's keeping up with the comedy element, I'm fine with him.
Me too. It's not like I have a huge issue with this show drawing on tropes.
But I will say, I first episode at least, I was a little bit like, these guys were better as side characters, and I know that's an unpopular opinion, and Disney probably won't appreciate me saying that if they even listen. But it's just they were a little bit better as side characters since they were explored more, I guess. At the same time, second episode, I feel like they're starting to hold their own weight. What do you think?
I agree. I think the audience is slowly developing a bond with these characters, and I mean, to be fair, they were up against Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi the first time we saw them, so it's not like there was little competition, right? Those are
Hmm.
huge fan favorite characters that we're seeing them up
Well, then
against
again,
or up with.
they were boosted by those characters. I feel like.
I think they were, but I think the presence of those characters, them being fan favorites, took away from the individual appeal of the Bad Batch because those guys were such show stealers.
True, true. Um, Omega is pretty interesting as a character, um, but I guess a little bit annoying and a little bit like I respect the decision at the end of episode two. Not that we haven't been spoiling, but big spoiler alert: when Cut's family is seen by the Bad Batch, Omega is told by Hunter to go with Cut's family because Cut's more of a family man. But it turns out that Omega wants the Bad Batch as her family. So I mean, it's kind of a stupid decision, but at the same time, I really like how they're creating this family dynamic between them.
I think for me it was kind of absurd because she's only known them for like a day or so. Like, why are you going off with these strangers that you have some sort of unique quote unquote kinship with, right?
I mean, she has a bond. She has a bond that we don't know about. I assume that it's because they're all defective clones.
I know, but at the same time, what the Empire is capable of is, true terrible things.
And a
And
kid
I would
shouldn't be.
certainly, yeah, a kid should not be subjected to hanging around with people that the Empire are targeting.
1000%. But at the same time, this is a kid's show. Like I have that like retrospect in mind. Like this is a kid's show. They're not gonna do anything like that. Wrecker's gonna punch Palpatine if Palpatine comes in. You know what I'm saying? Like that they're never gonna
Yeah,
show anything
they're
crazy.
not going to show the gritty side of the Empire, but I
Yeah.
did like how they were showing a galaxy in disarray and the fact that the Emperor is tightening his grip over the citizens, especially with that chain code bit in episode two.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I liked all of that. I also liked the whole sequence of them kind of, Omega starting to come in handy a little bit there too. So, speaking of Omega for a second though, what do you think is her like defective power?
I think, and I'm with Star Wars Theory in this one, that she is force sensitive.
Shout out to Theory, man. He's
Shout
great.
out to Theory.
So she thinks she's force sensitive. Is that because she was kind of like the healer, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I think she did exhibit signs of force healing in those episodes, but at the same time, it's not like we haven't seen this before with Baby Yoda, right? He was also a force sensitive healer.
Mm-hmm.
So ripping off your own saga, I guess.
I guess. Speaking of the other members of, or just let's speak about the other members of the Bad Batch. Hunter, I'm starting to like him a lot more. I really didn't really feel his character originally. But the other two are, very much still the side characters of this show, even. Like, we don't really see Echo and Tech as much.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Hunter doesn't have many flaws as far as I can see, but I would love to see more of his humanity explored and more of his imperfections. So far as I can tell, he's just this perfect badass guy.
Yeah. Another member that we met in episode one and we've met before is Crosshair, who I found mildly to more than mildly annoying. Like he kind of just had these two words, like very perceptive or like how wonderful or something like that. He just had these two words and he just keep repeating that again and again and again. So that was just annoying to me. And he's not this badass. Like we were talking about this earlier off air, and we were like, he's not like the Winter Soldier in where Winter Soldier was like a really big badass and then he became super charismatic. I do feel like, they should have made Crosshair do more than just kind of hunt his friends and fail at the end.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do think it was a logical choice for him to stay with the Empire. And for, one, it illustrated the grit and dark measures that the Empire would go to ensure that their enemies are targeted. And number two, I personally got very irritated of seeing him completely go against Hunter's directives over and over again.
Hmm. For sure, but again, like Crosshair has always been a little bit of a wild card. But I do feel like, and this is a prediction for a future episode, like he might be just saved at the end, and they might accept him back because it does seem like they're victimizing him because of the chip thing, right? The chip is the reason he's bad. He's not bad. The chip was a little bit on, and then they turned it all the way on. That's why he's bad.
I think the trope of redemption is so overplayed in Star Wars, and honestly, as a franchise, it needs to move past it. And another thing with those chips were introduced in the Clone Wars, but originally in the Clone Wars multimedia project, there weren't chips. The clones just independently followed Palpatine's directive. And I honestly thought that was a more hardened and realistic approach to character development.
Oh, for sure, because then we understand why they kind of were like, it's mirroring how soldiers of a misleaded leader would react. You kind of want to survive, so you do what your leader says because everyone else
Exactly.
is. It's a herd mentality, and it kind of explains more of what's going on. I
The I
do
was just
appreciate that
following
more.
orders aspect of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they've been well documented ones, and I'm not going to say their names because I'm not even going to dignify them. But you know who I'm talking about when I say a misguided leader and his army. You know what I'm saying?
For
So
sure.
like,
Yep.
that's happened before, and it's a great way to show character development there. What do you think is going to happen in the next episode?
I think in the next episodes we're going to see more of OG planets, and I loved how they included Camino and Seleucami, planets that we've previously seen before. A great shout out to previously established lore. But this time I think we're going to head to Braca, which is the shipbuilding planet or shipbreaking planet in Fallen Order, and finally Coruscant. There was a promo clip that showed a gangster hiring the Bad Batch in the Coruscant underworld, and I think Fennec Shand, who we know has underworld ties, is going to track them down.
How many episodes of this do we have?
I think it's 16 episodes. Not too sure though.
Yeah, I mean that's plenty of time for them to establish everything that we've just talked about. Yeah, so I can't wait for this next episode. They're still pushing the boundaries of Star Wars. I hope they don't just go with this cookie cutter formula of the Mando because it worked. I do feel like how the Force Awakens was literally a ripoff of the original movies or the original movie. Um, I hope they move forward from this.
Yeah, Star Wars is a superbly original franchise, and I'm sure they have plenty of stuff in store that's going to knock our socks off.
Can't wait. All right, so that was our review of the Bad Batch episodes 1 and 2. We really want to know what you guys think, so let us know down below what you guys think. And if you liked what you saw right here and you want to see more, you're in luck because we got a channel full of these videos, so click right on the logo to see more. Peace.